Assalamu alaikum, meet Ismail, an absolute technology genius.
He'll take you from basic electrical theory straight into real, hands-on builds.
Hit subscribe for weekly explainers and let's start building today.
Welcome to the Explainer. We've all been there, right? You're cruising down the road, you crank up your absolute favorite track, you hit about 40% volume, and suddenly, crackle pop, just a muddy, distorted mess. It is incredibly frustrating. You spend good money on a setup expecting deep, resonant bass and crisp, clear highs, and instead the vibe is totally ruined. Well, today, we're going to fix that once and for all. Consider this your definitive, deconstructive blueprint to achieving flawless distortion-free sound. We're tearing down the anatomy of a perfect 2.1 car audio system, looking at exactly what goes on beneath the surface to make a system really sing. Okay, let's dive right into this blueprint. We're going to start by looking inside the custom amplifier, then talk about boosting voltage for heavy bass. After that, we'll go over the strict rules for speaker wire thickness, the main battery wire requirements, and finally, lock in the ideal speaker and subwoofer sizes. Starting with Section 1, inside the custom amplifier. Everything begins right here. The amplifier is absolutely the brain of your entire audio chain. Without a rock-solid, well-engineered foundation here, your physical hardware just can't function the way it was meant to. You've got components like the subwoofer IC, the speaker IC, and the tone board, which all act as the engine. They're seamlessly processing and refining raw audio signals before they ever reach your speakers. Add in your master volume, your bass and treble controls, plus full Bluetooth, FM, and USB support, and you basically have this highly flexible, incredibly capable control center running the whole show. But you know what the real standout feature is here? Independent subwoofer control. It is literally a game changer, and I can't emphasize enough how awesome this is for anyone who loves great audio. Having a dedicated control just for your subwoofer means you can create the absolute perfect balance. You can dial in those crystal clear highs and mids on your main speakers while completely independently tuning that heavy, heart-hitting bass. It lets the bass punch right through without ever muddying up the vocals or the melody. Moving on to Section 2, boosting voltage for bass. All right, so we've got the brain sorted out, now we need to talk about the muscle. Generating heavy, earth-shaking bass doesn't just happen by magic. It takes a massive amount of energy. And to get there, our electrical system has to make a very crucial mechanical leap. 64 volts. Let that number really sink in for a second. Your standard car battery only puts out 12 volts, but a high-quality custom amplifier uses a DC to DC converter, an inverter board, to pull from that standard 12-volt battery and instantly blast it up to a massive 64-volt output behind the scenes. And this illustrates exactly why that huge voltage jump is so critical. You simply cannot pump massive 12-inch heavy-duty subwoofers at full force on a mere 12 volts. You just can't. That raw 64-volt power is entirely non-negotiable. It is literally the difference between a weak, rattling hum and a deep, continuous, chest-thumping bass line that never drops out no matter how hard the beat hits. Which brings us to Section 3, speaker wire thickness rules. Think of wiring as the veins of your audio system. And honestly, this is where so many people go incredibly wrong. It's actually a bit of a shocking revelation. Super expensive high-end amplifiers are ruined every single day simply because the wiring connecting them is terrible. On one hand, you have cheap wire costing maybe 10 to 15 rupees. This is the ultimate villain of your car audio setup because it literally chokes the high-watt current trying to pass through it. But on the other hand, quality wire for just a tiny bit more investment, say 30 to 35 rupees, completely protects that current from loss and guarantees the crystal clear sound your expensive amp is actually trying to deliver. So, we really need to rethink what audio distortion actually is. We usually assume it's an amplifier issue or a blown speaker, right? But most of the time, that cracking sound you hear at 30 to 40% volume is happening simply because thin wires are failing to carry heavy current loads. We have to completely debunk this myth. Your amp is trying its hardest to push the power, but the cheap wire simply gives up under the load. So what's the fix? 0.5 square millimeters. I'm presenting this golden metric right here because this is the absolute, bare minimum thickness required for your subwoofer wiring. If you go even a fraction thinner than this, your system is basically guaranteed to fail or distort when you push the volume. This right here is your baseline for audio survival. But hey, we don't just want to survive, we want to thrive. That's why we look at the headroom upgrade, 1.5 square millimeters for continuous, heavy playback. By safely upgrading to this thickness, you're providing your system with essential headroom. This means there's absolutely zero amp loss, even during top-notch, continuous, high-volume playback. Your system just breathes perfectly easy. Section 4. Main battery wire requirements. Let's trace our way back to the absolute source of the power. The main battery wire is the ultimate lifeline of your entire setup. This is the single most critical point where uninterrupted current absolutely must flow freely to keep the system alive. 2.5 square millimeters. This is the strict, non-negotiable minimum thickness for that main battery wire. If you use a thin wire from your battery to your amplifier, the whole system suffocates. It's literally starving for power before the signal even reaches the amplifier's brain. Now check out this brilliant rule for safe scaling. Make your battery wires 2 to 3 times thicker than your speaker wires. So if your upgraded speaker wires are 1.5 square millimeters, your main battery wire needs to scale up to around 3.5 square millimeters. By doing this, you're safely transporting massive, raw power straight to the amplifier's inverter board, ensuring that 64-volt leap we talked about earlier happens flawlessly. Finally, Section 5. Ideal speaker and subwoofer sizes. Okay, we've built the perfect brain, pumped up the muscular voltage, and laid down flawless veins. Now we arrive at the physical stage, the actual voice of the system. This is where those perfect electrical signals finally meet the hardware. For your main SDK board speakers, the ideal size is between 6 to 8 inches to perfectly handle those crisp highs and punchy mids. For the subwoofer, you want to aim for 10 to 12 inches to accurately translate that huge 64-volt power into deep, resonant bass. Matching your electrical setup with these optimal physical dimensions is the key. But wait, what if you don't actually have the space in your car for a massive 12-inch sub? Well, our source material has a fantastic pro tip for this: the double magnet rule. This is absolutely essential for subwoofers under 12 inches. If you have to physically scale down the size of the subwoofer cone to fit your space, utilizing a double magnet setup is crucial. It allows you to maintain that heavy power output and keeps the bass hitting just as hard, even with a smaller footprint. So I'm going to leave you with this final vital question. Is a hidden wire flaw silently ruining your perfect audio experience right now? I highly urge you to go take a look at your own vehicle's wiring. Don't let a cheap 15-rupee cable bottleneck your premium hardware. Apply these golden metrics, unlock that flawless sound, and just enjoy the drive. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.